Unfortunately for San Francisco, their defensive tackle Kalia Davis is out until the midpoint of the season after undergoing a knee scope to remove either a bone or a cartilage piece behind his knee. Last week against the Tennessee Titans, Davis looked like the most explosive defensive lineman on the field. So in hopes of mitigating this loss, John Lynch signed Nick Williams, the defensive tackle from the LA Chargers. Last year for LA, Williams appeared in 14 games while starting in 6, and his best attribute had to be stopping the run up the middle, which is arguably the 49ers' biggest weakness on their defensive line. So in this video, I want to break down some of his film, then examine his career up to this point to really see what he offers San Francisco going forward. Starting out initially where I think he's best, his run support. Initially what popped out on Nick Williams' film to me was his athleticism. Despite being 310 pounds, he's able to track down ball carriers. When you take a play like this, for instance, Williams does an excellent job of being the first one to engage in this block and then throwing the center thanks to his own momentum. But he doesn't stop there and meets the ball carrier in the first gap forming. While it's impressive Williams has the athleticism to track down a ball carrier in open space, I also find his strength equally as impressive. When you watch this center trying to block Williams on this play, for instance, he's able to get no drive, and Williams is just reading where this back is going. And once the back does decide where he's going, Williams is right there to meet him in the gap. On this following play, Williams doesn't just show off his great athleticism, but also his great hand usage. You can see how he's locking out his arm and then ripping through this center's block before not just tackling this back, but causing him to fumble. Perhaps the most important thing for Kris Kocarik's defensive line is the first step and athleticism they show off. And on a play like this, you can see how Williams' athleticism is often too much for the center and guards he faces. First, you can see how Williams' initial step is much quicker than most centers or guards. And then thanks to Williams' strength and size, the center can't drive him out of frame, leading the back to get tackled. And on this play, Williams is on the opposite side, but once again, thanks to his crazy athleticism for his size, he's able to beat this guard and then track down the ball carrier. If there's any play to say he'll fit San Francisco's defense, it's this one. When watching Williams' film, it was also impressive to see how he reacted to what the offensive lineman was doing. When watching this play, for instance, Williams is reading how this guard is lunging at him with his head down, so he decides to pull out the swim move. Then his strength is too much for this fullback to handle, and he's able to bring down the back in the open field. But just because Williams is great at stopping the run, it doesn't mean he's terrible against the pass. I actually think he's pretty adequate. When you watch his pass rush, for instance, he's able to continue to show off his crazy athleticism, including having some nice moves. On this play, for instance, Williams does an excellent job of getting two hands on the center and throwing off his center of mass. Then he shoots right by him and the guard, putting pressure on Dak Prescott. While he didn't get the sack here, this is the type of pressure you like to see out of a defensive lineman, mainly thought of for his run support. But in this Cowboys game, Williams was able to record a sack, and while he didn't show off the most impressive pass rush move, I do love a defender that's relentless, and that's Williams. In a similar way in this Green Bay Packers game, Williams is able to collapse this pocket thanks to his strength, and then on his double move, throwing this guard out of his way, he's able to sack Rodgers. Or here he just beats this entire offensive line thanks to his crazy first step. So while it appears Nick Williams' film shows a defensive tackle San Francisco's really been looking for, I'm going to dive into his career up to this point to get a more full picture of the player Nick Williams is and if he can actually make a push for the 53-man roster. We were first introduced to Nick Williams in minor high school in Alabama. There he played basketball for 2 years before switching to football his senior season. But during the season, he went off for a defensive lineman. He had 25 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 passes knocked down. While this wasn't enough to garner offers from the likes of Alabama or Clemson, he did receive an offer from Samford which he accepted. And during his first 2 years, he only saw action in 7 games and had 3 tackles. But the following 2 years, from 2011 to 2012, he started in all the games, and his best season had to be his senior. He had a career best 31 tackles and 6 sacks this season, which also led the team. So after this year, Williams decided to enter the 2013 NFL Draft, and at the Combine, he came in at 6'4.5", weighing 309 pounds. He ran his 40-yard dash in 4.94 seconds, and his 10-yard split in 1.7. He also showed off pretty good strength, putting up the bench press 28 times. And with that, scouts started to break down his film a little bit deeper, and they saw a lot of strengths and weaknesses. As far as strengths went, a lot of scouts viewed Williams as an extremely explosive player. He got off the ball extremely quickly and is athletic enough to chase down a lot of ball carriers. And when Williams was targeted with a double team block, he was able to show off his strength, giving up little ground. He was also extremely solid as a tackler at Samford, especially in open space, which I think has carried over to the next level. Scouts still had their questions about his game, like he didn't have the biggest arsenal of pass rush moves. Williams' level of competition at Samford wasn't the highest either, and he was just routinely able to dominate whoever he went against. Despite these concerns, however, the Steelers took a flyer on Williams in the 7th round of the 2013 NFL Draft. But after only a year, Williams was released by Pittsburgh and then signed with Kansas City and played there all the way until 2016. Williams then found himself in Miami before ending up in Chicago in 2018. His best year in Chicago came in 2019, where he played in 16 games, had 5 starts, 42 tackles, and a career best 6 sacks. The following year in 2020, he signed a 2-year deal worth $10 million for the Detroit Lions, and over 2 seasons, he started in 30 games. And while he only registered 1.5 sacks, he continued to show off he was a great run defender, having 50 tackles, including 6 tackles for loss. During the 2022 season, Williams signed with the New York Giants and was able to start in 7 games before finding himself on IR with a bicep injury. Last year for the Chargers though, I think he was able to rebound nicely from this injury. He appeared in 14 games, starting in 6, but he had a career best 7 tackles for loss. He also registered a sack this year. So while Nick Williams is 34 years old, I still think he shows off pretty great explosion at this point in his career. And if he's able to continue his ability to stop the run like he did last year with the Chargers, San Francisco might have just filled a major weakness on their defensive line. He also enters the perfect situation for his athleticism. Chris Kasarik is going to take advantage of his first step, and I think he's going to make a push for this 53-man roster. But ultimately, these are just some of my thoughts on San Francisco signing Nick Williams, and I want to hear your thoughts down below. It would also mean a ton to me if you could like and subscribe, and as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.